Well, the state fair's ended, our kids are back in school, and the issues are starting to take shape for the upcoming election. And with the governor's debates during the state fair, the big question that's on everybody's minds is, do we need to raise taxes in order to balance our budget? Well, there are a couple of important facts that people need to think long and hard about before we embark on a path of increasing taxes. First, under the existing taxes in Minnesota, our state revenues are projected to grow almost $3 billion. That's a 6 to 7% increase in the amount of revenue that the state will have in the upcoming 2-year period. Remarkably though, state spending is projected to increase 24%. Over $7 billion our state spending is projected to grow. So we've got to think long and hard about whether increasing taxes is really going to be the solution that works for the state of Minnesota as compared to controlling our spending. And here's a challenge for the upcoming governor of the state of Minnesota. While spending is scheduled to increase 24% in the next 2-year period, after that it's scheduled to increase even more. We may see another 25% increase in our state spending after that. So if the proposal to solve the problem is to increase taxes for the next 2 years, what's going to be the proposal to solve the problem thereafter? The reality is, if we don't control spending, there is no solution other than an endless sequence of tax increase proposals as far as the eye can see in the state of Minnesota. So we're going to have to think long and hard about whether taxes are the right solution strategy, and we're going to have to think long and hard about whether Minnesotans can endure tax increases on top of what the federal government is very likely to impose in terms of tax increases to cover their massive deficits and their massive debt. One of the really unfortunate parts of the debate that we're having right now is the assumption that certain Minnesotans aren't interested in paying their fair share of their taxes. Well, I've never met anybody in Minnesota that isn't willing to pay their fair share. The real question is, are we using state tax revenues to good purpose and for the fundamental things that government is ultimately responsible for? There's an important argument being had about whether Minnesota's tax system is progressive or regressive, whether we favor low-income earners or high-income earners in our tax structure. A couple of things to remember. The top 1% of earners in Minnesota pay 25% of our income tax. The top 5% of earners pay 50%, and the top 30% of earners pay fully 85% of our state's income tax. In fact, our state's income tax is one of the top 4 or top 6 most progressive tax systems in the country, depending on how you measure it. When you add in our sales tax and our property tax and the corporate income tax especially, however, our tax system becomes less progressive and slightly more regressive. So if we want to look at fixing the regressivity of our tax system, we need to think about what we're doing with our corporate income tax, which ultimately flows through down to consumers and is one of the most regressive taxes in our system, and the reason why Minnesotans might claim that we have a regressive tax system. So we've got to be careful when we think about increasing the income tax on a certain subset of people that are already paying a lot of income tax in an extremely high proportion of Minnesota's overall income tax. In addition, these past few years we've actually loaded up on regressive taxes. The state sales tax, the Hennepin County sales tax, tab fees, the gas tax, cigarette taxes, all of these have been added to our tax system and made it more regressive. And so the Democratic solution is to pile on more progressive taxes. I think the solution should be more oriented towards controlling our spending and maybe giving relief on the regressive taxes as compared to the reverse. And what's most unfortunate about this whole debate is the way it's being framed, pitting one group of Minnesotans against another. It's political demagoguery of the worst kind. And to imply that if you really care about the state of Minnesota, you have to be willing to raise taxes, I think is absolutely false. If you really care about Minnesota, you should be willing to do the hard work of reform, to find new ways of doing things, to bring all of Minnesota together around a set of solutions that can advance our great state. I know we can do it. And as we've said before, this isn't going to be an easy task. We've got big challenges. We've got huge problems at our state. But I know we can do it. And if we come together as Minnesotans, we can do it.